Hey everybody. Each week there are certain questions that I get asked over and over again. So I thought it'd be a good idea to come out and have a little chat with you and address them all in one place, a little FAQ film. They're going to be pretty quick, pretty short answers. And also bear in mind that what I'm going to tell you in this film isn't necessarily what is true. This is just my take on it, my opinion. You also may be surprised to learn that actually I'm not in the least bit interested in cameras or equipment. But let's go for a walk in the park and I'll tell you all about it. Asking which brand of camera is best for a specific genre of photography, such as sunsets or landscapes or portraits or macro, is a little bit like saying I like driving into the sunset, which make of car will drive me into it best. They will all drive you into the sunset beautifully, some with perhaps more style than others. For example, an Aston Martin is going to be pretty flush and flash, whereas a Ford Focus, maybe not so much, but it will still get you there. All modern cameras take great images. All they're doing is hoovering up light onto their sensor and recording an image. It doesn't matter what that image is of. What is much more important is for you to find a camera that you can live with. For example, do you like looking in a menu to find the settings, or do you prefer to have buttons on the outside, which is my preferred choice? So what I'd suggest you do is go to a shop, pick up some cameras, hold them in your hand, go on some photography forums and review sites, find out what other people are saying about specific cameras, if you have a specific camera in mind. Other than that, it really is your call. The honest answer is, I don't really know. Why don't I know? Well, as I've said, I'm not really that techie or that interested in it. An FX sensor is about the same size as a piece of 35mm film, whereas a DX sensor is much, much smaller. And then there are different variations of DX sensor as well. Some are even smaller than others and some are bigger, and God knows, it's just mind-blowingly confusing. Will it affect your photos, the end result? Not really. There is probably an argument for an FX sensor, but I'm not going to go into that right here and now. If you're buying a new camera and you've already got DX lenses, then I would suggest you buy a DX camera. Most modern FX cameras, they will work with a DX lens because they'll sense that it's a DX lens, and then they will modify the field of view on their sensor accordingly, but not all will. So that's something you need to check. If you're using an FX sensor camera and you've got, say, a 10mm lens on an FX sensor camera, you've got an enormously wide field of view, so that would be great. But that's about all I can tell you about them, I'm afraid. Well, how big do you want to print your pictures? The more megapixels you have, the bigger you can print an image. But trust me, I have got over 30-inch prints from an 8-megapixel file, and they look absolutely amazing. The real advantage of more megapixels is that you have a better pixel density. So if you're using high ISOs, that means you will have less noise and better image quality. But between you and me, I truly believe that the reason camera manufacturers keep saying you need to buy this camera, it has more megapixels, is because it's a marketing ploy dreamt up by a bunch of guys in the pub. They're just telling you you need it. Well, no, you don't really. I nearly always shoot in aperture priority mode so that I can set the aperture I want for creative reasons and let the camera choose the shutter speed to go with it and get the exposure right. But it is really worthwhile learning how to use manual mode, because if you want to start using more interesting light, such as bring it in from the side, or even more interestingly, bringing it in from behind your subject, and you're shooting in an auto mode, your camera's going to make it go dark. But if you know about manual mode, you can quickly flick it into manual mode, and then you can just brighten up your exposure until you can see and you've exposed for the area of the picture you want to expose for. In this case, me, rather than the background. So do you need to know how to use manual exposure? I would say yes. Should you be using it all the time? No. As with everything else, the correct exposure is the exposure that works for what you're doing. Do you want a dark, moody sky with lots of clouds and blueness going on and the person in the foreground a silhouette? Or do you want to see the person in the foreground and let the sky burn out? It's your call. You choose the exposure you want and set it accordingly by either opening up the aperture or slowing down the shutter speed. But here's the thing. As you change your aperture, you're changing something creative, you're changing your depth of field, and you have to change your shutter speed to go with it in order to compensate and get the correct, in inverted commas, exposure. But what is correct? Do you like a picture a little bit lighter? Or do you prefer a picture a little bit darker? It's a personal choice, and the correct exposure is the exposure which you like best. Well, there isn't really a best lens, there's just a case of there's different lenses and you need to buy the right lens for what you want to do. For example, do you want a macro close-up lens or do you want a big long lens because you're doing sports? The thing is, if you're using a big long lens, the chances are you're going to get camera shake. Your subject is going to be moving around in the viewfinder and wobbling a bit, rather like this shot is now, I suspect. If you buy an IS or VR lens, image stabilizing vibration reduction, then that is going to stabilize and help remove those shakes and wobbles. What is far more important about lenses is that you understand what the different focal lengths do. So that as you change your focal length from a longer focal length down to a shorter one, you will notice that the whole picture is changing, the field of view is changing. And I know it's wobbling as Lorna walks towards me, but she's doing a brilliant job because she's holding the camera in her hands. This isn't movie land where we've got a railway track going on. It's more important you understand what your focal lengths do than get hung up on what type of lens you bought, be it an ED lens or an ER lens or an EF lens or all the different prefixes they put on lenses. If you're going to buy a lens for sports, then yeah, it's worth spending some money. That is one of the few genres where spending money on the kit will make a difference. But for the most part, don't get too hung up on what is the best lens to buy. Just get yourself something which covers a focal range from about 10mm to about 200mm, and then you can cover all the places in between and be creative with it. I've just told you. Well, I haven't just told you, but we have just demonstrated how the different focal lengths work to make the picture look different. It's a call for you, it's a creative thing. You need to go and watch our Focal Length Explained film and our Focal Length Changes 3 Things film, because they will show you more in detail how the different focal lengths make a picture look. There isn't a right or a wrong focal length. You just zoom your focal length so that it makes the picture look the way you want it to. No, you don't. If you like buying new camera equipment and camera equipment gives you a buzz and you can afford to do it, then by all means do. But don't starve your children in favour of it. Personally, I hate buying new camera equipment because I've got to learn where all the knobs and buttons are all over again from scratch. And I don't like doing that very much. As long as my camera is taking pictures that I love, then I love my camera. So if it ain't broke, why try and fix it? Well, there are two trains of thought here. If you think you're an incredibly clumsy person and you're likely to go and scratch the glass of the lens by grating it along a brick wall, or maybe you're going to be attacked by a lion or a leopard and have the glass raked with big claws, then yes, you probably do need a UV filter. If on the other hand you're like me, then you probably don't. Why don't I want a UV filter? Well, in 30 years of being a photographer, I have never once ever scratched the glass of a lens. I don't even use a lens cap, for goodness sake. I do keep my lens hood on the camera, my lens hood, not cap, because it stops my fingers touching the glass and getting greasy, smeary marks on there, which would happen with a UV filter, never mind anything else. Also, you spend all that money on the glass of your lens with all those rare earth coatings, and to put a UV filter in front of it, to my mind, is a bit like just photographing through a window. So again, it is your call. Do you need a UUV filter? I don't think you do need a UUV filter, but it's up to you. The only thing I need, and that's a cup of coffee after all this wandering around. Why is it all the best things in life make your moustache sticky?